these curses are now taking place because of the things that Jesus prophesied of: wars and rumors of wars, famine, pestilence, earthquakes in diverse places. But the greatest thing that's happening is the natural death of the white race. One of the factors that is causing our former slave masters and their children to be more antagonistic towards us is the white birth decline in Europe and America, and at the same time of their birth decline, the rise of Islam, not only in Africa and Asia, but in Europe, Canada, America, and now even south of the border. Europe and America's white birth decline and the rise of Islam. You know, on the internet, there's a group. According to research, in order for a culture to maintain itself for more than 25 years, there must be a fertility rate of 2.11 children per family. With anything less, the culture will decline. Historically, they say, no culture has ever reversed a 1.9 fertility rate. A rate of 1.3 is impossible to reverse because it would take 80 to 100 years to correct itself. As of 2010, the narrator says, the fertility rate in France is 1.8. In England, 1.6. In Greece, 1.3. In Germany, 1.3. In Italy, 1.2. In Spain, 1.1. Across the entire European Union of 31 countries, the fertility rate is a mere 1.4. Historical research tells us these numbers, according to this narrator, are impossible to reverse. He says, in a matter of years, Europe as we know it will cease to exist. Yet the population of the earth is not declining. Why? They answer, Islamic immigration. Of all population growth in Europe since 1990, 90% has been Islamic immigration. France fertility rate 1.8 per family. Muslim fertility rate per family 8.1. In southern France, traditionally one of the most populated church regions in the world, there are now more mosques than churches. In just 37 years, France will be an Islamic republic, according to this narrator and their research. In the last 30 years, the Muslim population of Great Britain rose from 82,000 to 2.5 million, a 30-fold increase. There are over 1,000 mosques, many of them former churches. In the Netherlands, 50% of all newborns are Muslims. And in only 15 years, half of the population of the Netherlands will be Muslims. In Russia, there are over 23 million Muslims. That is 1 out of 5 Russians. 40% of the entire Russian army will be Islamic in just a few short years. Currently in Belgium, 25% of the population and 50% of all newborns are Muslims. The government of Belgium has stated that 1/3 of all European children will be born to Muslim families by 2025, just 15 years away. The German government has said that the fall of the German population can no longer be stopped. Its downward spiral is no longer reversible. It will be a Muslim state by the year 2050. There are 52 million Muslims in Europe today, and that number is expected to double in the next 20 years to 104 million. Closer to home, the narrator says, the numbers tell a similar story. Canada's fertility rate is 1.6, nearly a full point below what is required to maintain and sustain a culture. And Islam in Canada is the fastest growing religion. Between 2001 and 2006, Canada's population increased by 1.6 million, 1.2 million of those by Islamic immigration. In the United States, the current fertility rate of American citizens is 1.6. But the influx of Latino nations, the rate increases to 2.11, the bare minimum required to sustain a culture. In 1970, the narrator says, there were 100,000 Muslims in America, and today there are over 9 million. Muammar Gaddafi said, quote, there are signs that Allah will grant victory to Islam in Europe without swords, without guns, without conquests. We don't need terrorists. We don't need homicide bombers, suicide bombers. The 50+ million Muslims in Europe will turn it into a Muslim continent within a few decades. This is like a warning to white people to get ready for a change that they are not in control of. And according to this video, 2 to 2.1, down to 1.8 live births means that in 25 years, there will be a cultural change. But will you, as a white person, be able to survive? But once your birth rate goes to 1.6 and under, it is impossible to reverse. What is expressed in this video bears witness to what the Bible says, that their womb would be cursed and their land would be cursed. So we see the fruit of their womb is. And if this is true, within 100 years, white people may be non-existent on our planet. What will the United States be like when whites are no longer the majority? And then it states America's changing colors. Inside, there's an article written by William A. Henry III entitled Beyond the Melting Pot, which states, quote, someday soon, surely much sooner than most people who filled out their census forms last week realize, white Americans will become a minority group. If current trends in immigration and birth rates persist, the Hispanic population will have further increased an estimated 21%. The Asian presence about 22%, blacks almost 12%, and whites a little more than 2% when the 20th century ends. By 2020, a date no further into the future than John F. Kennedy's election is in the past, that number of U.S. residents who are Hispanic or non-white will have more than doubled to nearly 115 million, while the white population will not be increasing at all. By 2056, when someone born today will be 66 years old, the average U.S. resident, as defined by census statistics, will trace his or her descent to Africa, Asia, the Hispanic world, the Pacific Islands, Arabia, almost anywhere but white Europe. The Browning of America offers tremendous opportunity for capitalizing anew on the merits of many peoples from many lands. Yet this fundamental change in the ethnic makeup of the United States also poses risks. The American character is resilient and thrives on change, but past periods of rapid evolution have also, alas, brought out deeper, more fearful aspects of the national soul. In the whole, these are scriptures that back up what the narrator of this video was saying. And this is showing why there is so much Islamophobia in the West, which takes us back to 9/11 and the truth tellers that say it indeed was a false flag operation that was designed to create hatred for Islam and Muslims and to stop the growth of Islam in America as well as in Western Europe. These are some of the factors as to why whites will become more and more disagreeable to live with in peace. Remember the theme now: why whites are becoming disagreeable to live with in peace. And since they are the originators and the organizers of Christianity, and they organized it under Constantine, not in Palestine where Jesus lived and taught and died, but it was organized in Rome, Italy, 325 years after the death of Jesus, for the purpose of the domination of the darker peoples of the world, with white supremacy using religion as the means of conquest. When you see the death of the West, it's not only the death of the West in terms of the dying population of the white race. It's the death of the religion that they organized for their political purposes, which comes back to Islam and the Quranic saying, surely the true religion with Allah is Islam. As the Caucasian sees his birth rate declining in America and around the world, and sees the rise in births among the blacks, Hispanics, Asians, Native Americans, and the darker peoples of the third world. His fear of the loss of his ability to continue to rule produces in him a state of mind that makes him more disagreeable to live with in peace. Conservative commentator Patrick Buchanan, in his 2002 book titled The Death of the West, How Dying Populations and Immigrant Invasions Imperil Our Country and Civilization. He shares his views on a declining white American population. He writes on page 12 of his book, quote, "The prognosis is grim. Between 2000 and 2050, world population will grow by more than 3 billion to over 9 billion people. But this 50% increase in global population will come entirely in Asia, Africa, and Latin America, as 100 million people of European stock vanish from the earth." In 1960, people of European ancestry were 1/4 of the world's population. In 2000, they were 1/6. In 2050, they will be 1/10 of the world's population. These are the statistics of a vanishing race. A growing awareness of what they portend is induced a sense of foreboding, even panic in Europe. What is the meaning of foreboding? It is a noun. It means fearful apprehension, a feeling that something bad will happen. As an adjective, it means to imply or seeming to imply that something bad is going to happen. Forebode, to have a presentiment of something bad. This foreboding has an effect on their mental state, and as they begin to lose the power to rule, and these curses that are mentioned in Deuteronomy and other places in the Bible and Quran begin to afflict them, then the level of civilization that they once displayed begins to gradually decline into absolute bestiality. You have this declining birth rate, which means the loss of their power to rule, the destruction of their economy, the fall of their currency, the foreboding of the weather changes and famine, and the destruction of the power of their religion over the darker people of the world. What effect does it have on their state of mind of one who has been made to rule? And when you couple it with the spread of an organized religion, that the founder of it is not in any way responsible for what it says or what it has done. For Jesus did not preach Christianity. He never knew it existed. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us. He taught freedom, justice, and equality. Unfortunately, Christianity has been used as a doctrine of white supremacy to oppress the darker peoples of the world. Lastly, what effect does it have on the state of mind of one made to rule to see Islam rising all over the planet and rising in America, rising throughout the world? These events, circumstances, and factors should help us to understand the wicked policies that have been implemented by the government of America to exercise population control through depopulation of the darker peoples of the world. Even though these wicked plans are now being practiced, yet the population of the third world people continues to rise. So even though we are being poisoned in the water, poisoned in the food by the spreading of disease, yet we are still here and we are still multiplying. But here's something to consider. For the state of mind of our black leadership class is they can't see themselves in any way being separated from their former slave masters and their children. They can't see it. They don't want to see it. And really, most don't want it. To think of separation in a land of their own, using their creative talent and capability in every field of human endeavor, but using this knowledge for the benefit of self. And so when our leaders think like that, they're going to continue to press the government, press white people. We want to stay with you. And the anger is going to increase and the blood shedding will increase, and soon you will see that it is the time in history that we must be separated. In 1957, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was in a debate with J.B. Well, finally, it is the presence of the truth of the time and what must be done that is also making the transgenic or grafted human being completely disagreeable to live with in peace. Let us look at how America, in which we presently live, was formed. In the Declaration of Independence, written almost exclusively by Thomas Jefferson, it reads, "When in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitled them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impelled them to the separation." We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. What is the meaning of these terms? Unalienable, life, liberty, happiness. Unalienable means it is impossible to take away, not able to be transferred or taken away because of being protected by natural law. What is the meaning of life? It is a noun that means existence in a physical world, the quality that makes living animals and plants different from dead organisms and inorganic matter. Its functions include the ability to take in food of that environment. Now, we know now that the crime that they say is at the root of terrorism was not committed by Arabs or Muslims at all. What did you say, Farrakhan? Over 2,300 of America's trained architects and engineers have joined in calling for a new investigation of 9/11. Well, what is 9/11? Some of you don't even know what 9/11 is. And that's really bad. 9/11 was the destruction of the World Trade Towers. Does it ring a bell now? They say that the World Trade Center buildings were brought down by carefully placed explosives, not by planes. They say that all three buildings had to have been wired with explosive charges long before September the 11th. And this is something that took tremendous sophistication to do, and that sophistication was not with Osama bin Laden or his followers. Listen. But if it was not Muslims, then who? Thanks to the exemplary work of scholars like Victor Thorne and Christopher Boland, it is now becoming apparent that there were many Israelis and Zionist Jews in key roles in the 9/11 attacks. Now look, if they can prove me wrong, like I said, I'll pay with my life. Since they want to kill me anyway, prove me wrong. We're dealing with thieves and liars and murderers. Listen to this. We know that many Israelis were arrested immediately after the attacks, but quickly released and sent to Israel. We know that the World Trade Center building was insured by its owner, Larry Silverstein, right before the attack, and in the insurance clause, there was a clause that if the building were damaged by terrorist acts, Mr. Silverstein would get paid. And guess what? Mr. Silverstein got $4.8 billion. We know that an Israeli film crew dressed as Arabs were filming the Twin Towers before the first plane went in. In other words, these Israelis had foreknowledge of the attacks. Now look, you say, but planes went in to these towers. Yes, they did. But do you know what kind of technology you have to have as a pilot to fly a plane and drop down to an altitude and turn at an angle at 400 or 500 miles an hour into a building? And the fuel of an airplane is not strong enough to create enough heat to melt the steel structure of that building. We know that many Jews received a text message not to come to work on September 11th. Who sent that message that kept them from showing up? Within minutes of the attacks, Ehud Barak, the founder and master of the Israeli military's covert operation force, was in a London studio of the BBC blaming Osama bin Laden and calling for a war on terror. And we know that Benjamin Netanyahu told an audience in Israel, we are benefiting from one thing, and that is the attack on the Twin Towers and Pentagon and the American struggle in Iraq. He added that these catastrophes and wars would swing the American public opinion in the favor of Israel. Why won't America investigate what these scholars and scientists have uncovered about 9/11 and who was really behind it? It now appears that 9/11 was a false flag operation, which is an attack by one country but made to appear like the attack came from another in order to start a war between them. Is this what friendship is?
Yeah.
Not because Farrakhan is a rapper. Don't put me in no cheap category.
That's right.
This ain't rap.
That's right. Go ahead, dear apostle.
I'm a teacher
Yes, sir.
of divine wisdom.
Yes.
The rapper takes the divine wisdom
Yes.
and puts it in a rap
Yes.
with music to it
Yes.
that attracts the feet and the heart and the soul of our people. But I'm not a rapper.
Good evening. I would like to report on the state of our war against the American people. We're mounting a sustained campaign to crack down on every American and every person of every faith and every nation, and to bring them to justice. All missions are being executed according to plan, without warning or provocation. Americans are being swept up in an international dragnet. Thousands of FBI agents are on the trail of other citizens here and abroad. It has everything to do with hate and evil and murder and prejudice. America is strong.
Federal agents, we are armed.
What would you do if you knew all the things we knew? Would you stand up for truth? Or would you turn away to? And then what if you saw all of the things that's wrong? Would you stand tall and strong? Or would you turn and walk away? What would you do if you knew all the things we knew? Would you stand up for truth? Or would you turn away too? And then what if you saw all of the things that's wrong? Would you stand tall and strong? Or would you turn and walk
I see a message from the government, like every day. I watch it and listen and call them all suckers. They wanted me about Osama or whatever. Picture me buying the scam, I said never. You in tune to a hard truth soldier spitting. I stay committed, gives a fuck to die, I lose commission. It's all a part of fighting devil state mind control, and all about the battle for your body, mind, and soul. And now I'm hoping you don't close your mind so they shape you. Don't forget they made us slaves, gave us AIDS and raped us. Another Bush season mean another war for profit. All in secret so the public never seek to stop it. The Illuminati, 666, all connected. Stole the votes, they control the race and take elections. It's the Skull and Bones Freemason Kill Committee. See the dragon getting shittier in every city.
What would you do if you knew all the things we knew? Would you stand up for truth? Or would you turn away too? And then what if you saw all of the things that's wrong? Would you stand tall and strong? Or would you turn and walk away?
Now ask yourself who's the one with the most to gain. For 9/11 motherfuckers couldn't stand his name. Now even niggas waving flags like they lost their mind. Everybody got opinions but don't know the time. Cause America's been took, it's plain to see. The oldest trick in the book is make an enemy. A phony evil so the government can do its dirt and take away your freedom, lock and load, beat and search. Ain't nothing changed but more colored people locked in prison. These pigs still beat us, but it seems we forgetting. But I remember 4 September how these devils do it. Fuck Giuliani, ask Diallo how he doing. We in the streets, holler jail to the thief. Follow, fuck waving flags, bring these dragons to their knees. Oil, blood, money, make these killers ride cold. Suspicious suicide, people dying never told. It's all a part of playing God, so you think we need them. While being Ashcroft, take away your rights to freedom. Bear witness to the sickness of these dictators. Hope you understand the time, brother, cause it's major.
What would you do if you do all the things we do? Would you stand up for truth? Or would you turn away too? And then what if you saw all of the things that's wrong? Would you stand tall and strong? Or would you turn it on?
So now you asking why my records always come the same. Keep it real, ain't no fillers, motherfucker blingin'. Mine eyes seen the gory of the coming of the beast. So every story, every word I'm saying, fuck peace. See, you could witness the Illuminati body count. Don't be surprised, these is devils that I'm talking about. You think a couple thousand lies mean shit to killers? Nigga, I swear to God, we the ones, ain't no villain. Or any other word they think to demonize a country. Ain't no terror threat unless approval rating slumping. So I'ma say it for the record, we the ones that planned it. Ain't no other country took a part or had their hand in. Just a way to keep you scary so you think you need them. Praising Bush while that killer take away your freedom. How many of us got discovered but ignore the symptoms? Niggas talking loud but ain't nobody saying shit. And with the 4th Amendment gone, eyes are on the 1st. That's why I'm spitting cyanide each and every verse. I see the Carlisle group and Harris bank accounts. I see them plead the 5th each and every session now. And while Reichstag burns, see the public buy it. I see the profiling, see the media's compliance. War's good for business, see the vicious make a savior. Hope you understand the time, brother, cause it's major.
What would you do if you do all the things we do? Would you stand up for truth? Or would you turn away too? And then what if you saw all of the things that's wrong? Would you stand tall and strong? Or would you turn and walk away? What would you do if you do all the things we do? Would you stand up for truth? Or would you turn away too? And then what if you saw all of the things that's wrong? Would you stand tall and strong? Or would you turn it away?
You can't imagine how much money they've spent trying to silence good people who have put their lives on the line to fight for change.
Here, but I just want to close with 9/11. You think these people care about 3,000 deaths? I want to show you something. What page? Thank you. It's part of my research team. You can research all the truth you want, but if there's nobody to preach it, what difference does it make? I want you to pay attention to this. I said, on November 25th, 2009, 9/11 was done by people in our own government and our own banking system to perpetuate the fear in the American people so that they might subordinate themselves so that the government may get them to do whatever they want us to do. And this was to create this endless war on terror. but the war on terror is a cover and a fraud for the real war, which is a war against Islam. In 2001, we experienced the horrific events of 9/11, but there are many who are saying that the official government version of events is not what really happened. As recently as this month, the Republican candidate in the Texas gubernatorial race, her name is Deborah Medina, publicly said on the Glenn Beck show, quote, "I think some very good questions have been raised. In that regard, there's some very good arguments. And I think the American people have not seen all the evidence there." But she quickly backed off of what she said. Now, listen to this. Why is it, these are questions about 9/11. Not that I compiled them, but they're compiled by people who are scientists, who studied this. Why is it that the FBI's most wanted poster of Osama bin Laden mentions other crimes, but not 9/11? Right before 9/11, unusually high levels of quote-unquote put options were placed on the stocks of American and United Airlines and corporate tenants of the World Trade Center. Put options are market bets that give the bettor a profit if the stock goes down. According to Bloomberg Business News, quote, "This would be one of the most extraordinary coincidences in the history of mankind if it was a coincidence." Many people got rich by the bets that they made that the stock in American and United Airlines would go down. How did they know? How was the FBI able to release a list and photos of the hijackers within hours? Why have at least 5 of the 19 alleged hijackers turned up alive and well living in Saudi Arabia? And if the perpetrators were from Arabia, why are we fighting in Afghanistan and in Iraq? Well, they say because Osama bin Laden was living in Afghanistan. The president of that country, Mullah Omar, when President Bush said that Osama bin Laden was guilty, and he dictated to Mullah Omar that they should turn over Osama bin Laden to the United States government and its authorities. And Mullah Omar said to President Bush, "Show me the proof that Osama bin Laden did this, and we will turn him over to you." President Bush, with his arrogant self, said, "We're not negotiating with you. Turn him over or else." Now, what is America doing in Afghanistan? Trying to buy off the warlords? Boy, this is a sick people, man. You bomb them and laugh. Now they're kicking your behind, and now you trying to buy the allegiance of these people? Don't you know with a $25 million price on Osama bin Laden's head, why haven't somebody delivered him? See, to some people, money is not the answer. Listen. How, these are questions, how could these alleged hijackers have known that multiple classified air defense drills were planned for the morning of 9/11, leaving only 2 fighter jets available to protect the entire northeastern United States? How did Osama know that? So then, who planned the drills on that morning that no fighter jets were there to intercept these planes? Think about it. Why was Attorney General Ashcroft warned to stop using commercial airlines prior to 9/11? Let's go to the Pentagon. How come the hole in the Pentagon was 18 feet across, but the wingspan of a 757 is 146 feet? Are you listening? How come that little single-engine Piper P-828 plane that crashed into the IRS office in Texas did more damage to that building than a 757 jetliner filled with fuel did to the Pentagon? How does a pilot that failed his lessons on a one-engine propeller plane pull off maneuvers that only a highly trained airline pilot could do? A 270-degree turn at 500 miles an hour, descending 7,000 feet in 2.5 minutes into a direct hit. Just questions. Why were surveillance videos recording the impact of the Pentagon confiscated by the FBI immediately after the event? Let's go to Pennsylvania Flight 93. You remember the one that fell into Pennsylvania? There was a big fight on board, you know, and whatnot. You know, look. Why do you all say in church that the devil is a liar? He's the damnedest liar that ever lived. Look. Question. Why was there no visible airplane debris where Flight 93 supposedly crashed in Pennsylvania? Only a smoking hole in the ground, no bodies, no seats, no wings, no luggage. The official story of 9/11 claimed that 10 sinful cell phone calls came from Flight 93, but the technology for airplane to ground cell phone calls didn't exist until 2004. Let's go to the World Trade Center. We're talking about the synagogue of Satan. 6 months before the 9/11 attacks, the World Trade Center was purchased by the Silverstein Group. I guess by that name, you might know that Mr. Silverstein might claim to be Jewish. But he bought the World Trade Center for $3.2 billion, even though the building, when it was built full of asbestos, and it would take darn near that amount of money to destroy the building and clean it. Larry Silverstein took out insurance coverage on the property, which fortuitously covered acts of terrorism. The total potential payout is $4.6 billion, and Mr. Silverstein has been paid. The result of a court ruling, Silverstein makes a huge profit off of the 9/11 attacks. And if you follow the money, you'll begin to see the synagogue of Satan at work. Now, George W. Bush's brother was a director, and his cousin was the CEO of the security firm responsible for the electronic security network of the World Trade Center prior to and during 9/11. At least one security guard at the World Trade Center reported the abrupt removal of explosive sniffing dogs 5 days prior to 9/11. Isn't that interesting? Let's go on. No steel-framed building before or since 9/11 has ever collapsed due to fire. The World Trade Center buildings were designed to withstand the impact of airlines because they were at that time the tallest buildings in the world. The melting point of steel is about 2,700 degrees Fahrenheit. The temperature of jet fuel fires does not exceed 1,800 degrees Fahrenheit. So the buildings cannot have collapsed due to heat from the fires. Why were people seen in the gaps left by the plane impacts if the heat from the fires behind them was so excessive? Listen, why were there two distinct spikes, one for each tower, seen in seismic records before the towers collapsed? How could the World Trade Center towers collapse in free fall speed? Only 11 seconds for World Trade Center 1 and 9 seconds for World Trade Center 2, speeds that approximate that of a ball dropped from similar height with no air resistance. Why did so many people, including the New York Fire Department, report hearing many explosions at street level prior to the towers falling. Who were those men on top of a van with a tripod and camera across the Hudson River filming the towers before the first plane hit? How did they know to be there? And why were they celebrating? The police arrested them and let them go into Israeli custody. Why? Now, building number 7, a 47-story skyscraper and part of the World Trade Center complex was not struck by a plane, but it collapsed in 6.5 seconds at 5:20 p.m. on September the 11th in the exact manner of a controlled demolition. Why was the U.S. military explosive thermate found in the dust of the World Trade Centers? Now you might say, well, all right, let's see if our government lies and does things and takes innocent life for other purposes. This is the end of my lecture today. Did you know that the United States wanted control over Puerto Rico, the Philippines, and Guam? So President William McKinley lied about an explosion on board the USS Maine anchored in Havana Harbor that killed 260 American servicemen. They said Spain did it, but they offered no evidence. And because of that war, the Spanish-American War, the U.S. gained control over Cuba and the Philippines and Puerto Rico, Cuba in particular, so that the island could be open to United Fruit Company and other American corporations. Did Lyndon Baines Johnson lie to get us into a major war in Vietnam? The official story was that the North Vietnamese torpedo boats launched an unprovoked attack against a U.S. destroyer on routine patrol in the Tonkin Gulf on August 2nd, 1964, and that the communists followed up with a deliberate attack 2 days later. None of this was true. President Lyndon Baines Johnson used the fabricated incident to justify a momentous escalation in the war, ultimately leading to over 56,000 American deaths and millions of Vietnamese casualties. Now, when John Fitzgerald Kennedy was the president, Castro was in power in Cuba, and they wanted to invade Cuba. Did you know that there was a memo from the Pentagon to the president? We could develop a communist Cuban terror campaign in the Miami area, in other Florida cities, and even in Washington. We could blow up a U.S. ship in Guantanamo Bay, the American military base in Cuba, and blame Cuba. Casualty lists in U.S. newspapers would cause a helpful wave of national indignation. Later, the Pentagon even suggested attacking Jamaica or Trinidad and Tobago and making it look as if the Cubans were responsible, hoping this might force Britain into a war on Fidel Castro. This is America. They don't care nothing about human life when it stands in the way of a political and economic objective. Now, brothers and sisters, you know there were no weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. But look how many Americans, black, brown, and white, have lost their lives on the basis of a lie. And so, my dear brothers and sisters, your blood is off of my hands. I am warning you that God is angry with America. And I am the representative of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Listen, don't applaud, don't applaud. And I am giving you a warning that you may or may not wish to follow. And the Quran says that whenever Allah sends a messenger, He seizes the people with distress and affliction that they might humble themselves. America is under affliction now. Do you want more? This is God's people. You've made a big mistake supporting Israel for 60 years as though they're the real children or people of God. This is the people. This is the people you should support. Well, if you're in love with America, then the Bible says the love of this world is enmity with God. If you hate God, then you will.
What's wrong, Mommy? The people are upset about some things, darling.
Why are they yelling?
They want attention. They're trying to get attention so that people will listen to them.
This is our way of trying to get some media attention because they are ignoring us, they're ignoring the anti-war movement, they're ignoring the anti-government movement. We love our country, but we cannot trust our government anymore. Our government is totally out of control. George Bush is full of shit. And who do you believe? Do you believe George Bush or do you believe me? That's what it's coming down to. Do you believe your neighbors? Do you believe the people that live in your hometown? Or do you believe these mad dog killers in Washington, D.C.?
Are we setting up a situation where young people who are just starting to come of age are going to have no choice but to either join the military where there seems to be a lot of money or to go to jail where there seems to be a lot of money? Is that what this is lining up to be?
When we stand here today, it is not enough to simply be for peace. We have to be for social justice. The fact is that right now, even as we are talking, people are being murdered by U.S. imperialism throughout the Middle East and throughout the world.
Our sons and our daughters are out there being used as cannon fodder. It's an outrage, and we should stand up and seize the hour and fight back.
If there is going to be any peace on earth, it is going to come as a consequence of our people uniting to defeat U.S. imperialism once and for all.
Easily I approach the microphone. In this land of jokes, can't leave it alone. Cause you know I can see right through corrupt plans in these bullshit scams and untruths. We living in a maze, different days and times. The world is a stage, most truth is a lie. In this propaganda matrix, the sheep just die. For these motorist conservatives with corporate ties, deny knowledge of the truth, ignoring the poor. They just human ammunition for these capital wars. Just human ammunition and collateral deep. That's why millions of us holler rising up in the streets. And when you see me understand understand I'm representing a voice the majority would feel if ever given a choice. I don't need the seedy media, they only annoy. Cause the only ones that wanna scrap ain't ever deployed. Who do the fighting for these rich white folks and they wars? No, it ain't Drew Carey, Dennis Miller or Stars, Fox News, Mike Savage, Bruce Willis or Rush. Won't be MSNBC, CNN or a Bush. Never Toby Keith, Hannity, O'Reilly or Clint. Ain't Clear Channel, no they ain't supporting dissent. Never Blair, Kid Rock, or Tom Cruise or Viles or James Woods, Rob Lowe, Tom Selleck or Powell. Not Arnold Schwarzenegger, he ain't gon' shoot. A Ted Nugent, cause in war targets got weapons too. Ain't Cheney, Rumsfeld, Halliburton or Ridge, or Ann Coulter or Joseph Lieberman or the Rich, or any bitch up in Congress. They just make laws. When it come to fighting, we the ones that end up in gold. So when you say support that murderer, I have no applause. Even if he got his jumpsuit on, we pay the cost.